exercise earlier.
Okay, well, we are recording now.
It's recording. All right, we're live. Welcome ANC3F meeting, April 20th. The year is 2021. It's 7:04. Let's call this meeting to order. Let's go through the roll call. I can see, let's start to my right. I've got Commissioner Appa.
Present.
Commissioner Wall.
Present.
Commissioner Mehta.
Present.
Commissioner Nemeth.
Present.
Commissioner Buechner.
Everyone, I'm present.
All right, and Commissioner David, are you? I don't see her, so hopefully she'll join us, and Commissioner Castile here. So the first order of business is to approval of the April 20th, 21 agenda, which includes the consent items that are listed, the March 16th minutes, and the treasurer's report. Thank you, Commissioner Wall and Rachel, for preparing that for us. I have a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
A second.
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 All in favor?
Second.
Aye.
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 All right, we're ready to go. So we're on to our regular agenda. This is a time we have commissioner updates and treasurer's report. And let's start with the treasurer's report first.
Thank you, Chairman Castile. Be very brief. ANC3F's financial position remains quite strong. At the close of the second quarter, expenses during the quarter totaled $1,777, almost entirely comprised of personnel expenses for the very great administrative support provided by Rachel to the ANC. After these expenses, we have a balance of $81,773 in our account, which is a great position to be in, as it provides us with resources to continue to fund grants like those we're going to hear about later this evening. Upon approval and signing of the quarterly report, it will be posted to our website for the public. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Wall. Any questions? All right, that's good to hear. So now we've got part of our agenda where we have updates from commissioners. I'll go in the same order. Commissioner Appa, anything to report?
Just one update, update or call to action. We do have the Ready to Play initiative with DC Parks and Rec. One of the things that I am advocating for is a skate park somewhere in Ward 3. Another person has gone onto the website to be able to advocate for a skate park. So if there's anything that you want in Ward 3, please, DC Parks and Rec is still looking for feedback from folks. So that's the one thing that I hope folks in this on this meeting will go ahead and take a look at. And then finally, oh no, I will say that talk about the Schools and Universities Committee, but I think we'll have a report on that later on.
Okay, thanks. I'll go in the same order. Commissioner Wall, any update you'd like to give us?
Yeah, one very quick update, thank you, is that we finally have the baseball field fence was repaired by DGS. So it was great to see that after being in disrepair for the past year. Thanks to the Parks Committee for pushing that, as well as others who have raised that. In conversations with DGS, they will be making more frequent visits to the park, which is fantastic to make sure it stays in great shape, as we get into the summer season. That's it from my end. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Commissioner Wall. Commissioner Mehta, updates from you?
I do not have any updates, so I will take a pass on this time. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Nemeth?
I don't have any real updates, though I do notice that the tennis courts at UDC are coming along. I see a lot of construction activity there, and it looks like progress is proceeding nicely. So optimistic that those will be available a couple of months. I don't know how long it will take, but.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Nemeth. Commissioner Buechner, anything from you?
Nothing from me today.
And let's see if Commissioner David is, I'll check the other side. I can't see her. I don't see her yet. And I have one thing to report on, and I'm gonna try my skills at sharing my screen. This is, I think this was reported in a number of places, but I rode by today and saw it again. And so I think this is, I don't have an update, but I do have, if you look at this message, my understanding this was a group of Deal middle schoolers who I think are Commissioner Nemus neighbors. And they put this nice sign up along the park at 36th and Yuma. So I think it's kind of the cool thing about Kid Energy, and it's pretty simple and it's a pretty good message for these times. So thanks. So now on to the regular agenda. We've got 3 action items tonight, and what we're going to do is we're going to introduce these items and have commissioners discuss them, and then if there's questions from the audience, we'll have it that way. So for the first 2, these are grant applications that came to us, one from Rock Creek Conservancy and the other from Van Ness Main Street. And then the third item, welcome Commissioner David, is the Connecticut Avenue resolution. So let's start off with the Rock Creek Conservancy recommendation, and I'll turn the floor over to Commissioner Buechner to introduce that item.
Hi, everyone. So yeah, as Commissioner Christeel mentioned, we do have an application from the Rock Creek Conservancy about a grant request for updating Melvin Hazen Park and Trail. So I'd like to turn it over to folks from that grant request to tell you more.
Great. David, is that my cue?
Yes.
I think that Jeannie Braha is not on yet because of technical difficulties, but basically, I think a few years ago, Rock Creek received a similar grant, and they've been putting that money to good use across the park, but particularly in Melvin Hazen West, where there's one of their oasis sites. They're doing several sites across the city where they're trying to remove invasive plant species and restore the parks to the way that they are meant to be, without the bamboo, without the English ivy. And it's not only a way to make the parks more, enjoyable for the people who are walking through it, but also, getting the community involved in several ways. A lot of times, what Rock Creek does is they rely on volunteers to come and help. That's the labor work, or not manpower, but like people power. And what they need funding for is in particular is, the actual plants that they're putting in the ground, and the fencing to protect it from the deer and the other animals. And then also to have just for what they cannot do with volunteers. So it's actually going to be a small part of the money that they're using, because they've also received a grant from another foundation. So it will help just get them across the finish line for this year, to just make what is one of the most visited parks I know in my area of 3F a little bit more accessible and beautiful. So that's what I have to say. I wish Jeannie were here, but
this is Jeannie. I'm sorry that I just joined, but Corey, I think you did a fantastic job describing the need. Thank you so much. And thank you all commissioners for your consideration of this request. We were incredibly grateful to receive support from the commission a few years ago for plant material. The park is not a small task. There's a tremendous amount of work. And as Corey described, we use a lot of people-powered restoration. A lot of ANC3F residents have helped us removing invasive plants and planting natives and doing litter cleanups, et cetera. And we look forward to continuing to engage the community there. And it will be even easier with additional materials to be able to continue doing that. So thanks.
I'll say from my perspective, as someone who used the park very frequently during the COVID times, it has been an essential part of maintaining my sanity. So I'm super excited, hopefully that we can support the restoration and continued upkeep of this great resource that we have in our neighborhood. Does anyone have any questions for our folks?
Any commissioners? If there's no questions, anybody in our audience have a question about this before we make a motion?
I have a I have a question. I don't know if it's the appropriate time, but Melvin Hazen, the name of the park, are we ever going to eradicate it and get rid of that racist name? As we give our volunteers who do a great job, clean it up, but it's hard to support a Melvin Hazen park, don't you think?
I
That's a good
completely
question.
agree, Kathleen. David, sorry for interrupting. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, Commissioner Nemeth, I think you probably have the most current information in terms of what's on
Yeah.
the docket for that.
So by way of background, so last year, ANC3F, we passed a resolution calling for the renaming of the park, and we've passed that along to Congresswoman Eleanor Holmes Norton's office because the park is federal parkland, so we don't have direct jurisdiction over it. So neither does the DC government at all. And the Congresswoman's office, the Congresswoman is full support of renaming it. And she did, in fact, she had indicated before the year was out that she was going to take action on that in the coming year with the new when the new Congress would be seated. And in fact, she did. I'd say about a month ago, she sent a letter to the National Park Service calling for the name to be changed. And so there is action happening at the federal level. And DCS, yeah, I see that someone put a link in the chat window, and the Washington Post even wrote a story about it also around the same time. So there is some action going on, and it's right now with NPS. In our resolution, we asked that NPS work with the community to come up with a name that the community can agree upon. So that's the latest I have, and hopefully something will happen soon. I did see on a related note that earlier this afternoon or late this afternoon that the DC school chancellor has recommended that Woodrow Wilson High School be renamed August Wilson High. And it's now sent that recommendation to DC Council. So.
Well, thank you. Thank you for the update.
You're very welcome.
Any other questions on this? I don't see anybody. Hopefully everybody knows where the raise hand function is. Seeing no questions, I'll entertain a motion.
I'd like to motion to approve the grant request for $3,000 made by the Rock Creek Conservancy.
Have a second?
Second.
Okay, we've discussed it. There's a motion on the floor as a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous, it passes, so congratulations. And Ms. Levine in the Parks and Wetlands Committee and Jeannie on Rock Creek Conservancy. And remind us when that date is, when we can volunteer.
I'll invite you to go to rockcreekconservancy.org and check out the event calendar. My technical challenges are keeping my notes from me, but I would be happy to send a note around to many of you. I'm also happy to talk more about the renaming of Melvin Hazen if folks have questions. We really appreciate your support on that matter as well.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
No, thanks. So on to the next item. This is a $23,500 grant request from the Van Ness Main Street. And I think this is Commissioner Mehta is going to introduce this and tee it up. So you have the floor, Ms. Mehta. Thank you.
Hi, great. Thank you very much. Commissioner Wall and I have been taking the lead on reviewing the grant application by Van Ness Main Street. The amount requested is $23,500, and it breaks down. And I should note that it's all funding that will be used for programmatic purposes as opposed to overhead of any kind. So it's all sort of direct dollars going to be put right into action. The request breaks down into three components: beautification, wayfinding and branding, and public art. And with that, I will turn it over to Gloria Garcia, who is the executive director, and she's with us tonight. And I would also like to note that Barbara Lardy, who's the president of Van Ness Main Street, is here, as well as Joff Masukawa, who is a board member. And Gloria, if I miss somebody who is here on your behalf, please go ahead and point them out. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Mehta. Yes, Barbara Lardy, our president, is on the phone. We also have Michael Sands, the owner of Calvert Woodley, who is our treasurer on the Van Ness Main Street board. Joff Masukawa is on. He's on the board. He also chairs the design committee under which this project falls for implementation and execution. And then we also have Wendy Bogart, who is on our design committee, longtime volunteer. And then of course, Kathy Sykes, who is our master gardener and impetus on the beautification and sustainability. Most of you know, we were founded in 2016. And that also came from a recommendation from the Van Ness Main Street commercial corridor action strategy. And this really picks up one of the most important pillars in goals that overarches several of the vision goals for that report, and which Van Ness Main Street has been pursuing. And that is public space and sustainability. So this has three parts to it. The sustainability and the beautification, Kathy Sykes has been leading the charge, and we will continue to do that. Obviously, we have not been able to fund that except for donations because of the pandemic, and because we put the majority of our dollars in supporting the businesses over the past year. But it's time to pick it up. The public art component that was developed in 2018. And so what we're looking really is to continue the beautification, which really includes sustainability because of all of our rainwater runoff. And, we're planting pollinators, and hopefully this will stave off some of the issues we have until the streetscape project from DDOT comes into play in a couple of years. Then we have branding and wayfinding. We are now a mature Main Street. We are one of the few main streets in Ward 3 that does not have some type of wayfinding branding, which includes banners or signage to promote where to go from the metro or to the metro, to find our businesses, to find parking. We are one of the more fortunate main streets that has underground garages as well as off-street parking behind businesses. So we really want to create a place where people can really come off the metro or get off their bike and say, wow, we're in Van Ness. We're in Van Ness, we're in Forest Hills, we're in Wakefield. And this project is also going to help us hopefully launch and apply for a public art component. We shifted away from the component that 2 years ago that the ANC approved the similar amount of money. We really want to make it more inclusive, more diverse, and honestly include local artists, either from our own community or for DC. The last design that won was not a firm from DC. So we really want to make this, a project that reflects the diversity and the culture and, the breadth of things that you can find here in Van Ness and now Wakefield and Forest Hills. This project will also help us connect the lower corridor, as I call, from Van Ness to Albemarle, as well as the upper corridor, which is Fessenden to Nebraska. So hopefully this will unify. We're already unifying with all the plantings, but I think this will really create, the next step for Van Ness as we come out of this unprecedented time. So happy to take questions from that. Oh, and our timeline is June 30th for especially public, the wayfinding and the branding. That one, and we want to include the community on the design. We're not going to go blindly on that. So any other questions, let me know.
I guess Commissioner Nemeth.
Hey, Gloria, so,
Yes.
and this was, the original application, the original stuff back in 2018 predates my time as well on the ANC, as well as your time with Famous Main Street.
Mhm.
But from what I remember and what I knew about it from back then, also there was a component then that involved Whittle School also having a contribution to the to this art, and they were going to have some public art that was being used as part of this. So this was going to be like a matching program. And from what I understand, so Whittle has no play with this at this point, or are they also still involved, or?
Yeah, that's a great question, Monica. You know, I've been on the job now 14 months. I've never been able to get in contact with them. They've gone through 3 schoolmasters. I think they're having problems. But as I unraveled the 2018 project, the Whittle art installation on their corner is outside of my legal boundaries. So my boundary ends at Van Ness, across the street from them, you know, at the UDC Student Center and that Bank of America corner. So I really couldn't fundraise for that corner, if that makes sense. I think we could have gotten around it, but really that was one of the issues with that installation. You know, honestly, one of the things that the board really looked at of those installations, each installation was estimated at $70,000 when Whittle put up the money and the previous ANC put up the money. But our board engineer, who sits on our design committee and used to chair this, Matt Dreher, he said that each installation was going to be about $120,000. So, you know, it really was not a cost effective. And then each installation was the same. There was no diversity. It was just the same installation. So I think we can do a lot better with less money, you know, up and down the avenue. But definitely in the plazas. I think the plazas are still, you know, especially the Eastern Plaza where Giant is, to try to activate that plaza. So, but yeah, so that's what happened with the Whittle part of it.
Any other questions? Commissioner Wall, you have a question, saw your hand up.
I do. Thanks, Commissioner Castillo. And thank you, Gloria, for the fantastic discussion of the grant request. And also thank you for being an ongoing great partner to the ANC in supporting the commercial corridor, supporting our businesses. You know, we've had, you know, a handful of closures over the years, but there's been some very recent exciting news of new openings that are coming, like the Mediterranean Market at the corner of Connecticut and Albemarle. So very excited about the work that you continue to do to bring about a vibrant corridor and a very beautiful corridor in your efforts. I only had a few questions. I think you might have answered some of these in your presentation, but based on the grant request, there is $23,500 that would come from the ANC. Can you confirm the status of the remainder of the funding, the $26,000 remaining?
Yeah, great question, Commissioner. Yes, so we are on the way of raising that money with what we have already earmarked between individual donations, major donors, some corporations. And when I say corporations, there's some actual businesses in the corridor, as well as building owners and management companies, and our own board. We probably, by June 30th, we would only have to raise about $9,000 more. So out of that 26. So we're pretty confident that by June 30th, we will have the matching, if not more, for this. And we really kind of want to attack it like it's, you know, I think, you know, it's spread across 3, but I know that we will complete wayfinding and branding, definitely, you know, because a lot of other main streets are doing this. So the vendors are already lined up. So I'm pretty confident on that one.
Thank you, very, very much appreciated. And to the extent that there are future projects that can continue to reinforce these initial efforts, you know, I definitely encourage the Van Ness Main Street to reapproach the ANC. For us to consider future grants, because again, we do want to continue to be a good partner to you and Van Ness Main Street, and also to all the businesses that bring our community to life. So thank you for that.
Thank
One
you.
more quick question.
Mhm.
As relates to the branding and wayfinding effort, can you talk more about exactly how it will address parking access and directing people to parking facilities that exist either behind buildings, below buildings, or otherwise off of the corridor?
Yeah, we envision to highlight those. I'm not a designer and I'm not an urban planner. So I think that we are lucky that we have urban planner and on both on committees as well as on our board. And we have some urban planners that sit on our economic development committee. So I hope that that type of expertise will come. A lot of the other main streets are also looking at this on how to, highlight not just parking, but, the off-street parking right behind the buildings, because, I think those are very well-kept secrets, which might be a good thing, but, we have the most parking off-street than, say a Woodley Park or a Cleveland Park. So I think that'll help with congestion, once we move into the future. But I think that I envision as a non-urban planner, really telling people what's happening, where you're walking towards, that Soapstone Valley is, in this direction, right past Calvert Woodley. We can also work with the businesses to help, that the businesses also get involved in, putting up signage that says, do you know that Soapstone Valley is right behind, my business? Do you know that the Soapstone Valley Trail is right down, behind my store, like with Shamali's Market? I mean, that's the stuff I see, but I will rely on the expertise of, designers that have done this before, together with on our, people who sit on our board and committees.
Okay, so I think that's a, I don't know, Commissioner Wall, is that address your question?
That's all my questions. Thank you.
Oh, thank
Any
you.
other questions? Commissioner Mehta, Commissioner Beekener, Commissioner David, Commissioner Nemeth? Commissioner
Gloria, can you speak a little bit about the timing of the execution of the projects in the grant proposal?
Sure. So beautification is ongoing. As you know, we're just about to enter our fourth weekend of planting. And I have to say, this really makes a difference for the businesses. We're doing it in front of the businesses that are probably, we're struggling a little bit more, like Lolly Burris to the south, that is on its own, basically. In that building, we did Viet Chopsticks. Kathy did Viet Chopsticks. I think we're doing IPK and, Shamali's, that corner. I think if you walk to the north, you will see the transformation of the streetery in front of Americano and Rosemary's Bistro. We've also been able to finally convince Politics, Lucia, enough. I'm so sorry about that. Politics and Prose, we've been after him for years, right, Kathy, to let us plant in front of Politics and Prose and provide planters. So the beautification is ongoing, but this will really help us again, really focus on those on the businesses that need, while doing pollinators and doing all the right stuff. So the wayfinding and branding, I think what's going to take the longest is deciding where the banners go and what they look like, and as well as the wayfinding, what I just described. But I'm really confident that we could get this done by June 30th, to be honest with you.
So I'm saying you think by June 30th?
Wow.
I'm hoping at least the design and the plotting it out and all of the signage. I mean, the install might take a little longer, but I have that lined up. There is a company that's all, ready and waiting.
So you talked about getting the community involved. So I think there's a community here tonight that's, as we're interested, or if you're interested in this would be a great a volunteer effort to kind of get involved with. And if the timing is indeed, like you say, 60 days, then this is something you could participate in and you'd see the benefits of this real fast. So,
Yeah, if I run into roadblocks, I will tell this body immediately. But you know, our design committee would be the vehicle to join to participate in this. So just, you know, send me an email to info@vansmainstreet.org.
And
Could you-
Gloria, on that note, this presentation by you reminds me that it is time for me to make my annual contribution to Van Ness Main Street.
Thank you.
So
Thank you.
you should also feel free to take the next 30 seconds and make that plug too.
Thank you. Yes, Deepa, thank you. I would, and I want to thank, we have so many already on this call that I see that are donors and major donors, but you know, I'm just so happy that last year through the pandemic, we were able to raise our goal. And honestly, even though we have lowered our number this year, I think we're going to exceed it. But you know, a contribution to Van Ness Main Street is A, tax deductible, B, I hope you can visibly see what's happening. And also I want to put in a plug that, you know, nothing goes to my overhead. I am paid out of our other grant. So nothing that really is contributed to Van Ness Main Street pays for any overhead. It goes directly into programming. So there's not a lot of nonprofits that can say that. So June 30th is also a key date for me. And I thank Deepa for this reminder, because we want to become a mature Main Street. And if we bring in our $40,000 before June 30th, which we're on the road to do totally for the year, we will become a mature Main Street in the eyes of the DC government. And we won't get more money, but we'll get it all up front, 90% of the grant. So that makes a big difference on cash flow through the year of next fiscal. So thank you to all of you who have made donations, and look forward to receiving, you know, others. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Garcia. I think if there's no other questions, are there any questions? Last call for questions. I'll scan the room. I don't see any. Oh, I see one question. Ms. Common, you're it. You have the floor. Hello.
I'm sorry.
I didn't realize I needed to unmute myself. Question and comment. It sounded like from what you were saying, when you talk about pollinators, that you're using native plants. And it seems to me, not just for this project, but for all projects, public money should only go to planting with native plants. And also I had a further question about where the plantings are, because another concern of mine is parking. And as a 74-year-old lady, it's hard if I get out of my car and I'm just using this as an example, but the way the trees have been protected in front of the Tenley Library, there's parking there, but it's really a fairly dangerous place for somebody with orthopedic issues to get out of the car. So I'm concerned that the plantings aren't so close that you can get out and there's a pathway from your car to get to the sidewalk.
I think I see Ms. Sykes nodding up and down. If you want to unmute yourself, Ms. Sykes, and
Sure.
floor is yours.
I think that was a very good comment, and something that we're very aware of, where we have been planting in the tree boxes and where parking is permitted. We have actually put in a strip of mulch. So definitely when you open the car door or step out, you aren't going to step on plants. So we put them closer to the sidewalk, and still had a little bit of mulch in front, because sometimes people step off the sidewalk and into the tree box. So we are planting native plants. It's not 100%, but it's probably 80%. And we do have some annuals in there with seeds like zinnias that attract other pollinators, because they need nectar. Even we have milkweed for the monarchs, but even monarchs need other colorful, bright flowers to get the nectar from, like zinnias. So those are, you know, we planted with bare roots and seeds, but we definitely are totally on board for what they call the keystone plants, which really attract and protect and save bees, butterflies, and insects for sustainability. 1 out of 3 bites you take every day rely on pollinators. So that's what we're trying to do up and down the corridor. Thank you for that good question.
Yeah, Kathy, and thanks for responding. So I think we're ready for a motion on this.
Commissioner Castile, I'd like to make a motion. Oh, was there another question from? Okay. I'd like to make a motion to, for ANC3F to approve the grant request in the amount of $22,500 to Van Ness Main Street.
A
I
second?
second that motion.
We've got a motion and a second. Ready for a vote. All those in favor say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
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 Any opposed or abstains? Nope. All right, congratulations, Van Ness Main Street. You've got the grant, so thanks for all the good work and help on.
Thank you. Really appreciate it. Hey,
Commissioner Castile, if I may, Commissioner Mehta has also just posted the link for donations into the chat. So if anyone's on the call live by computer, click that link and help us get over our goal. So thanks, Commissioner Mehta.
All right, thanks. So now on to the next item, or last action item tonight. This is the Connecticut Avenue reversible lane study, and we've got a draft resolution that's been on our site for about a month now. We've got, I'm gonna let Commissioner Wall introduce that, and I've also got Bob Dealing, who's the chair of the Streets and Sidewalks Committee, to help walk us through this draft resolution that we have. And how this is gonna work tonight, we're gonna, Commissioner Wall's gonna introduce the resolution. We'll have a discussion amongst the commissioners and Chairman Dealing, and then we'll open up the floor for questions and comments from our audience. And then at the end of that discussion, we'll take a vote. So that's how this is gonna work. So for those of you that are tuning in, please be patient. And then after our discussion amongst the commissioners and committee chair Dealing, we'll open up the floor, and I know there's an active chat function going on, but if you could raise your hand either through the, at the bottom of your screen, or you can actually, raise your hand, and we'll keep an eye on this. And so let's go. This is a very, very important and very significant discussion we're about to have right now. Commissioner Wall, you have the floor.
Thank you, Commissioner Castile. We had posted, as you said, the proposed resolution to the ANC3F website over a month ago, seeking to give the community a chance to react and provide feedback in advance of our taking a vote on the resolution. As would be expected in a very engaged community like ANC3F, we did indeed receive a significant amount of feedback. The feedback was both positive and negative in support of what's under consideration, which is Build Concept C. And what was most useful is when this feedback was accompanied with details on very specific concerns regarding the proposed alternative. We appreciate and take these concerns very seriously because regardless of the direction implementation ultimately takes, it definitely helps us understand and push DDOT and other agencies to address those concerns as implementation moves forward. Again, whichever direction it goes, we still want to address these very real concerns that have been raised. We have reposted a revised resolution that seeks to address a lot of what we heard from the community and hone in on those very concerns and show how we want those to bring those to light, and also what we as the agency intend to do as things move forward. Again, it's our hope that this resolution will show that we have heard the community and that the concerns you have raised are reflected there. So with that, I'd like to get started and walk through the resolution. I am not going to read line by line in terms of the whereas clauses, but I will read in detail our resolutions, which are the things that we're actually, voting on this evening. To start, this effort began, 3 years ago, where the ANC3F Streets and Sidewalks Committee adopted resolutions back in March 2018 to request a comprehensive study of the corridor to enhance pedestrian safety, walkability, economic vitality of the corridor and in our neighborhoods, to make improvements to traffic management, including Connecticut Avenue as well as surrounding streets, and including the creation of dedicated bike lanes. Other ANCs in the quarter, ANC3C and ANC3G, also adopted resolutions requesting this comprehensive study back in 2018. This study is ongoing. There's been a number of community meetings to present where DDOT has currently stands in its efforts. It's was operated under a number of guiding principles, trying to accommodate people of all needs that live, work, recreate in the corridor, to prioritize both residents and businesses and a number of different factors. The study was conducted in the context of our Vision Zero initiative, or DC, which seeks to eliminate traffic deaths and injuries by 2024, as well as carbon-free DC to make the city carbon neutral by 2050. So those are some of the guiding frameworks that were used as DDOT went about its efforts in this study. From a complete street standpoint, that policy means that streets are designed, operated, and maintained to accommodate safe and convenient access and mobility by all users of the district transportation system. This includes pedestrians, bicyclists, users of mass transit, motorists, emergency responders, and people of all ages and abilities. The DDOT study developed a series of concept alternatives that, again, as I mentioned, were presented in multiple community meetings, including several that included removing the reversible lane operation, and one concept, concept C, that involves removing the reversible lane and also installing a protected bicycle lane, as well as including parking and loading in commercial areas 24 hours, all days. Build concept C, again, includes protected bike lanes on both sides, preserves parking loading areas, and it also identified potential safety benefits. The DDOT study identified several impacts of each of the concepts that result from reduction of Connecticut Avenue parking and result in potential projection of traffic diversion from Connecticut Avenue to other streets, including Broad Branch Road and Beach Drive, Reno Road, Wisconsin Avenue, Massachusetts Avenue, as well as the many connector streets that connect you from Connecticut Avenue to those parallel corridors. And once again, in their study, they estimated 100 vehicles per hour that would be diverted to Broad Branch, 50 to Reno Road, 140 to Wisconsin, 170 to Massachusetts Avenue. As presented, they presented those, that diversion as, fairly, insignificant in their view of their study. But we heard from you all, and we recognize very clearly that that is, significant diversion. And we understand that that will have impacts, to you, to your neighborhoods, to us, as community members, as a result of that. And again, we heard this, positive feedback in support of these changes to the corridor, as well as, the feedback in opposition to these, concept C elements. And through our resolution, which I'll now kind of walk you through our resolution points, we sought to address and balance these varying views of all of our constituents here in 3F. And very importantly, as we just discussed earlier, our business stakeholders. And again, as I mentioned earlier, we see Van Ness Main Street as a partner, and we see all of our business interests as a partner, because that creates a complete and vital community for Van Ness, Forest Hills, Wakefield, and our 3F community. So I'll walk through our new resolve statements that reflect this feedback. First and foremost, be it therefore resolved that ANC3F supports the implementation of Build Concept C, because of the 5 build concepts under consideration, it appears to be most consistent with the guiding principles of the safety study, the overall improvement of the quality of life for persons of all ages who live, work, and recreate along the corridor, and the goals of both Vision Zero and Complete Streets principles. Be it further resolved that while ANC3F supports Build Concept C, it has serious concerns about the safety impacts of diversion and cut-through traffic in neighborhoods adjacent to the Connecticut Avenue corridor, and therefore requests that DDOT take concrete steps to mitigate the likelihood and impact of diversion traffic simultaneous with implementing Build Concept C, including prohibiting entry during rush hour on certain streets, speed bumps, speed cameras, and other proven measures that will ensure the safety and walkability of streets around Connecticut Avenue. Be it further resolved that ANC3F strongly urges DDOT to immediately implement traffic calming and pedestrian bicycle safety interventions on Connecticut Avenue, as well as in the adjacent communities east and west of the corridor. to mitigate speeding and other issues, safety issues that exist today and that are likely to be exacerbated by the implementation of Concept C. Again, I'll stress that again, is that we're not wanting to wait until the implementation of these new changes to the corridor. We believe and we strongly support DDOT investigating and implementing mitigation measures today, because we do have some of these issues today as it relates to speeding and cut through traffic on some of our residential streets. Be it further resolved that considering the significant safety benefits of the corridor safety improvements, again, the 3F strongly urges DDOT to implement these changes as soon as possible, consistent again with the safety study, consistent with Vision Zero, consistent with Complete Streets principles. Be it further resolved that ANC3F urges DDOT to permanently remove the reversible lane operation. Be it further resolved that ANC3F will continue to work with the community after this meeting and throughout the rest of the design process, implementation process, to provide comments to DDOT project teams to develop further recommendations to improve livability of the Connecticut Avenue corridor, and to make sure that these concerns that the community has raised are indeed addressed at every step of the way throughout implementation. Be it further resolved that ANC3F authorizes Commissioners Castile, Mehta, and Wall to speak on behalf of the commissioners on this subject with the Mayor's Office and Cabinet and Council and DDOT. And with that, I would love to turn it back to you, Commissioner Castile, to open up to discussion. Mr. Daling, please feel free to provide any additional comments based on the work of Streets and Sidewalks on the study.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Wall. Yeah, I think I'd like Mr. Daling to add a few words because they've worked with the Streets and Sidewalks Committee. They've worked not only in this resolution, but over the last few years on this. So I'd like to give the floor to Mr. Daling.
Thank you. Thank you, David. Thank you, Commissioner Wall and all of you. Yes, so our Streets and Sidewalks Committee, of course, has been involved with this for a long time, but we also just met last week and were able to take a look at, I think, most of the recent revisions to the draft resolution. So I think I can speak for the committee in saying that we support the changes that have been made to the resolution, as Commissioner Wall said, to accommodate some of the concerns that have been raised. I might add a couple of clarifications. One is that, I think it's important to remember, and I just want to give a little plug to DDOT here, that their study has been quite data-driven, fact-heavy. They've done modeling. There's a lot to drill into if you really care about these issues. And a lot of the folks on our committee have looked at this, and it is in that spirit, I think, that we've come to support this resolution. So this is not just sort of our gut instinct about what Connecticut Avenue should look like. We're really looking at the DDOT study as our guiding principle here. I think they're doing well. Another point to make, and I saw that the draft resolution, maybe in a whereas clause, has some specific numbers about how much parking might or might not be retained in Concept C. And I would just add that I think DDOT is still sort of evaluating that very question. So that's a little bit of a moving target, and it looks like it may increase. If it goes anywhere, it looks like the number of parking spaces to be retained 24/7, by the way, would increase, not decrease, as far as I can tell from the DDOT presentations recently. And then finally, I support the ANC in improving the resolution that our committee started, but it's really your resolution. So if you have more questions, I'm glad to answer them. But David, I think it's time for community input.
Okay, so I think let's have, if there's any questions from the commissioners or comments. I know again, from a process perspective, this resolution did come from Streets and Sidewalks, and they kind of went through it, and then it was with us for, I guess, about a month, and then, and over the probably last week, we've gone back and forth with it. So I think we've had a good go of it, but are there kind of questions or comments before we turn it over to the community? And you can either jump right in or raise hands or.
Well, I'll jump right in. I don't have any questions. I'm just going to make a comment that I've been a strong supporter of Vision Zero. and when I originally ran for ANC, I came out immediately and ran on a platform that called for the elimination of the reversible lanes on Connecticut Avenue. The issues that are covered here are things that I've advocated for right from the beginning as I started my work on the ANC. So I am firmly in favor of this resolution. I'm very excited by this project that DDOT is undertaken, and I look forward to it. I'm certainly going to be voting in favor of this resolution.
Thank you for Commissioner Nemeth. Any other commissioners want to weigh in or have questions or comments?
This is Commissioner Appa. I like that we made sure to include, make sure that we included our recommendations to, reduce the speed of traffic and some of those other aspects, because there are things that we can do now. A couple of weeks ago, I think Commissioner Castile and I sort of talked about this already. Unfortunately, another cyclist was injured, or was actually killed due to on his way to his COVID appointment. And, I really want to make sure that as the ANC, we are continuing to push forward the Vision Zero initiative to make sure that Connecticut Avenue continues to be safe for everybody, drivers included, of course, because it would be terrible if any one of us, if we were driving, accidentally hit a cyclist. So I'm definitely in support of the resolution that we've put forward, and I really hope to see a protected bike lane sooner rather than later.
Thank you, Commissioner Appa. Commissioner Mehta, you had your hand up.
Yes, thank you. A few observations, and I'd like to drill down a little bit on some of the thought process among the commissioners so that we can be more transparent as well with the community. First of all, Mr. Daling, thank you so much for the really detailed work and thought that you and your committee put into the draft resolution. I think this process has worked as it should, in the sense that, everything sort of bubbled up and then it spread out to the community, and we took a lot of comments. We took every comment, actually, not just a lot, every comment. I am deeply impressed and grateful for the incredible level of thought and engagement. And frankly, I'm a little embarrassed that I never got this engaged before I was a commissioner on some of these issues. I'm sure there are issues before me, before this one, that were just as pressing and important. So thank you to the community at large for that. This is a hard issue. There has been a lot of passion, I think, in our emails. I think it's fair to say that. I think I speak for my fellow commissioners when I say there's been a lot of passion on both sides of the issue. It's not a question of whether you're for bikes or against bikes, or in favor of businesses or against businesses. And unfortunately, I think some of the rhetoric has been positioned that way. And what we as a body have tried to do is to balance the interests of the various stakeholders who live and walk and transport along Connecticut Avenue. So what you saw in the first draft in March was a first pass, and what you see now is an incorporation of that process of balancing of interests. And for my SMD in particular, which is Forest Hills, I heard very loud and clear a very strong concern about cut through or diversion traffic, because we already have two major streets, three really, that serve, unfortunately, as through streets for folks who want to avoid traffic on Connecticut Avenue or Broad Branch. We have Davenport, Brandywine, and Linnean. And those folks were especially interested in how this would impact them. Those streets are not mentioned in the resolution, but I did want to take this opportunity to say that I remain committed to ensuring that the impacts of diversion traffic on those streets are attended to and dealt with simultaneous with the implementation of Bill Concept C, because the last thing I think any of us wants is to move safety problems and concerns from Connecticut Avenue onto our side streets, right? We don't want to move the problem, we want to deal with it holistically. So just a statement, I think a philosophical statement on where my thinking is, and I thank everybody for indulging me in those comments.
Appreciate that, Commissioner Mehta. Commissioner Buechner, or Commissioner David, any comments or concerns or questions? If not, I think we're ready for Commissioner, hands up.
I have a comment also. I see that there's a couple other raised hands that might want to make comments as well. First, thank you, Commissioner Castillo, and thank you, Commissioner Mehta, for your comments as well. I just want to state, my own kind of approach to reviewing this proposal from DDOT as it relates to Concept C, as it relates to supporting the development of a resolution. I am a walker. I like to take leisure walks around Forest Hills. I like to walk to Van Ness, to the commercial center to eat, shop, or take transit. I am also a bicyclist. I bike to run errands. I bike for exercise and leisure in Rock Creek Park and beyond, and I bike for occasional commuting. I am also a car owner and a driver, and I also ride Metro and Metro bus. I live on Davenport Street, which is one of the cut-through streets that connects Connecticut Avenue to Broad Branch Road, and that convenience of connecting those two streets also means that it is a very prime candidate, as Commissioner Mehta mentioned, for becoming one of those cut-through diversionary streets. And I am concerned about that. It has been great to see that ANC3F, myself and my fellow commissioners, were a commission of action, not just producing resolutions like this resolution this evening. I think my action, the action of our fellow commissioners after today, will be to immediately begin, engaging with, Commissioner Mehta, with, the cut-through traffic in Forest Hills, with Councilmember Che, other 3F commissioners, and DDOT, to immediately start to implement the safety measures in the neighborhood. There is absolutely no reason to wait until implementation of this project. Further, as I mentioned earlier when we were talking with Van Ness Main Street, that they are a critical partner to us in enhancing the vibrancy and livability of our neighborhood and our community, and as an advocate for businesses. The grant request that we approved earlier shows ANC3F's commitment to supporting these businesses and toward making community members and visitors more aware of the businesses and more aware of the parking facilities that exist to support those businesses. This, again, was a grant today, but I truly envision that there'll be ongoing support and coordination between Van Ness Main Street and the ANC to continue to build, strengthen our commercial corridor and reinforce the importance of the businesses in Van Ness. With that, I am a very strong supporter, all of that said, in terms of, despite the impacts that I will personally experience living on Davenport Street, I still want to see this happen. I think it makes the best, case for broader benefits to our broader community. And I do want to make sure that as it gets done in the most safe way possible, and that we truly commit ourselves as commissioners and community toward, pushing for those investments again today, toward making the area safer. So thank you.
And I think I would, just before we get into discussion, I know I'm going to kind of remove my chair hat and give a few words of my own personal experience and here. I live on Connecticut Avenue. I've been here for 4 years. When I first started, I was a commuter, and I commuted by bike down Connecticut Avenue, down into the park, over to Arlington. And it's an interesting experience, riding a bike during rush hour, but it's not for everybody. And so I think part of what's driving, my sort of thought process, experience, feedback from neighbors. We've got people here at Tilden Gardens that they're not walking as well as they used to, and when they're on the sidewalk and they get zipped by the hand scooters or the bikes, it makes them uncomfortable. So I see this as this concept C as a way to make the sidewalk safer. Hopefully it'll make the streets safer for cyclists. Hopefully it'll slow things down. I know the other part that, it was fast during pre-pandemic times, but if you've watched traffic now, there's more gaps in traffic. So I guess in some ways that's good, but the observation is that the speeds have increased. And so I think that, again, getting to what concept C is, and I think this is that I've observed, through participating in the study, and in terms of how the DDOT has looked at the alternatives, and they looked at a number of concepts, a no-build concept, a concept that simply removed the reversible lanes, several concepts that had bike lanes on both sides or a bike lane on one side going both directions. It's really this concept C, that has risen to the top in DDOT's analysis in terms of what's the, what is the best balance that Commissioner Mehta raises in terms of, making Connecticut Avenue both an effective means of transportation for all sorts of modes, but also making it safer, because I think that's an important piece. And the point that Commissioner Appa made, I went to that ghost ride, that ghost memorial down on Massachusetts Avenue. And I see this as preventing that from happening here on Connecticut Avenue. So I think that's kind of where I stand on this. I think this has been a good compromise. It's been a really healthy process. And I think, as Commissioner Mehta and Wall and others have mentioned, we've really, this resolution has evolved, and it really does try to be holistic in terms of taking into consideration a lot of concerns that have been raised by the community, particularly around the mitigating of diversionary traffic. And again, the other point that Commissioner Wall has made in reading the resolutions, we really want to start working on this right now. I had a conversation with Ed Stolloff, who's a project manager, around the parking issue. And so they're really serious about trying to figure out the parking for the commercial areas and making that work. I think there's this, the streets that have been identified, we're really gonna have to work with those, because I think that, again, just an experience with me today, I was coming down Davenport and stopped at a stop sign at Broad Branch, and I was about to go through the intersection, and a car came right through that stop sign, didn't even watch. So I think, even though there's stop signs, we're gonna have to figure out, if we put in more stop signs or speed bumps, we're gonna have to make sure that those rules are enforced as well. So that's what I have to say for now. I think let's open it up for the community for comments and questions, and then we'll, at the end of that, we'll entertain a motion and a vote. So without further ado, I see there's 3 participants raised. I see first one on my screen is, it looks like Steve in a blue shirt with glasses.
Hi, it's Steve Seelig. Sorry, David, that I forgot to type my last name. And my dog is sleeping this evening. I was on a different ANC call last evening, and he was awake because it was much more lively. So I really appreciate the ANC's approach to a civilized way of proposing and putting forth this resolution. A couple of comments I'd like to make, and I do think it's great that this happened on the same night as you folks went ahead and authorized the funding for Van Ness Main Street. I think the working with them, the issue that Commissioner Wall raised earlier, and Commissioner Wall, I see you passing me in the on your bike in the park, so wave to me next time. I think it's fabulous to really work on that whole parking issue, and hopefully that's something that you intend to continue to do with the wayfaring signs and with DDOT. DDOT themselves needs to inventory the parking spaces that are available and make sure that the businesses and the residents understand where that parking is available. And so I think it's great that you're doing that. The other thing I would raise is the whole issue, and this goes without saying about the safety and the like, but as to the cut through traffic, as everybody understands, we had the streets blocked off for the pandemic, and we saw how that worked and how it didn't work this past cycle. And I would encourage the ANC in their work with DDOT to really think about, do we need every street in our neighborhood to be used for through car traffic? Can we create those safe streets where kids can play and the like, done in the right way? There's plenty of examples out there. I know, David, you know those examples and where they exist. And so I would encourage that this ANC work with DDOT. But most importantly, I'd like this ANC to continue to hold DDOT's feet to the fire in delivering what it is that they've promised here, which are safety improvements on the corridor that include a bike lane. They haven't even gotten to anything like a 10% concept, and to really work with them to make sure that they do promote the safety that they're trying to accomplish here. Again, most appreciative of this resolution and in strong support. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Selig. Okay, next on my site is Mr. Keefe. You got, I didn't remember, so try to keep your comments at 2 minutes so we can kind of get everybody. Mr. Keefe, you got the floor.
Hi, guys. It's good to be here. Thank you guys for holding this meeting. I'll just say I support option C and the resolution. I think it's really great. I hope that all of you support this. I think it's great to have protected bike lanes on Connecticut Avenue. It'll make my life safer. It'll make mode shift possible for many, many people along the corridor. It also will make sure that we can have a safer street for pedestrians and hopefully for all users. I do think that holding DDOT's feet to the fire on this design is important. When we get to the 10% design phase and on, I would like to see us push DDOT to, put the safest design possible, particularly for pedestrians. And we need to focus on some of the, smaller details, particularly around bus stops and stuff. As someone who uses the bus most days, all of these modes can work together in sort of a pretty harmonious way. We just need to make sure that actually happens. I would also hope that you guys, when voting for this, please hold Mary J's feet to the fire as well. All of this will need to be funded by the council. And as transportation committee chair, she holds the purse on this stuff. So please, vote for this, keep banging the drum, and I really look forward to a safer corridor for everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Keefe. Next in my list, I've got Mr. Josh Rising. Josh, you've got the floor.
Great. Thanks so much. Thanks, commissioners. It's been a great discussion here tonight. My name is Josh Rising. I live by Chevy Chase Circle, have spent a lot of time traveling Connecticut Avenue, sometimes on bike, sometimes other ways. I helped start a group called the Ward 3 Bicycle Advocates a few years back. And our goal is to make it safer for people of all ages to be biking around Ward 3. I think people here on the call may well know, but Ward 3 really lacks any safe infrastructure for people to bike on major roads. We really have lagged behind other parts of the city. In fact, there's a grand total of 1 block of a protected bike lane in all of Ward 3. So building this on Connecticut Avenue will be a major step forward for making it easier for people of all ages to be biking around Ward 3. Other thing I want to share is that when we talk to Ward 3 Bicycle Advocate members, who are people of all ages and biking ability, and ask them what their priorities are for Ward 3, hands down, a protected bike lane on Connecticut Avenue is the top priority that comes up. So this is really something that's meeting the needs of people who are interested in doing more cycling around the city. Really support kind of the work of the commissioners. Thank you so much for doing this. We did a survey of everybody who was running for ANC back in the fall. And when we got the results in from everybody who was running in ANC3F, we were really excited because everybody strongly agreed with putting in protected bike lanes on Connecticut Avenue. And now we get to see that bear fruit and see that actually happen. So thank you so much, commissioners, and look forward to the rest of the discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Rising. Next, I've got, I'm not sure if it's Ms. or Mr. or, but it's Barr. Mr. Barr, Ms. Barr, Miss Barr, Mrs. Barr, you're up.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Hi, my name is Barr Weiner. I'm the president of the Cleveland Park Citizens Association, and we don't tend to play with 3F as much as 3C, so I just wanted to sort of say hi and thank you for a very thoughtful effort on this topic. I appreciate the effort to try to hear everybody's views and try to address them all in your resolution as best you could, and look forward to working with you guys further as this process overall keeps moving. And we already sent you comments in writing, so you've seen those, but thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Barr. Welcome to us. I know 3F is kind of both Van Ness and a bit of Cleveland Park, so glad you're here. Thanks for tuning in. I've got Ms. Ann Common. You're up.
Thank you. I'm a 3F resident on 38th Street between Alton and Yuma. And from my understanding from talking with Commissioner Chris Steele, the bike lane will be only on one side of Connecticut Avenue. And if that is correct, I don't see why there's the limiting of parking on the other side. Again, I'm talking as a 74-year-old woman with orthopedic problems. And while there are days I'm doing great and I can walk from 38th Street to Connecticut Avenue, there are days I really need to park very, very close to any store I'm going to. And I really don't like the idea of always having to pay for a garage. And garages, they get expensive and it means a further walk depending where you're going. Also, I don't understand, again, if this bike lane's only on one side of the street, why parking should be limited to business districts. I have friends on Brandywine Street. I have friends on Ellicott Street. I'd like to visit and I'd like to be able to park. Thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Cowan. I think I must either misspoke or you misheard me. It's the bike lanes are on both sides. The one side of the street is the parking that DDOT, or we're going to try to accommodate in the business districts in the, in the Van Ness corridor. So it'd be one side in the business strips, there'd be parking and loading, and then there'd be bike lanes on both sides. So that's concept C. So next I've got Maura. You're up.
Hey, everybody. My name is Maura Duffy. I live at Connecticut in Tilden, but I've lived in the general Van Ness, Cleveland Park area for a while now. And I strongly support Concept C, and I thank the commission and hope that you support the resolution tonight. And I just want to share a story of people have brought up tonight how scary biking on Connecticut is currently. And about 6 years ago, I was trying to commute to work during rush hour, and I was on a Capital bike share, and my elbow got swiped by a car, and I was fine. I didn't call the police or anything, but it was really scary, and that kind of dissuaded me from trying to bike on Connecticut Avenue for the next 5-6 years. It took a while to build up the confidence. And so I don't think that any of us should be satisfied with that safety barrier happening. And I know that there's a lot of people in this community that would want to bike. And if we had better infrastructure, they could do that and allow that mode shift. And then the second thing is, even though I do bike, I'm mostly a pedestrian. I'm always walking to the different businesses on Connecticut. And I'm actually more excited about Concept C as a pedestrian, because I think it'll make the sidewalks much safer, and that it might slow down some traffic and not make it feel like Connecticut is a highway coming through. And also it would get the bikes and scooters off the sidewalk so you can walk in peace. And I also just think that all of us are so lucky to live in one of the few places in the country where we don't need our own vehicles to get around often. So I think that supporting Concept C would, be a good thing and allow that mode shift, and then leave the parking for people that do have mobility issues. So I want to thank the commission, and I hope you all support Concept C. Thanks.
Thanks, Ms. Maura. Next up, we've got Bo Finley, who is the chair of ANC3C. So welcome, Commissioner Finley.
Thank you, Chair Cristal. Castile, sorry. Last night we passed a resolution supporting Concept C. We heard from a number of folks who shared the trauma of, and it's tough to relive trauma, but shared the trauma of bicycle accidents on Connecticut. It was very powerful, moving, and I realized that we should not be making public policy in reaction to accidents, but in an effort to keep those accidents from happening. And I was very impressed with all the people who were willing to share those very traumatic stories. Last night we had about 90% of commenters support at the meeting support our resolution, and in email to the full commission, we received about 80% in support for Concept C. But as I believe, and I want to echo what Mr. Rising, Mr. Keefe, Steve in the blue shirt, and Ms. Duffy have said, that this is very important, but we also need to hold Councilmember Che's feet to the fire, so to speak, and ensure that she not just supports us in this, and she has come out in favor of Concept C, but that she convinces her fellow members of council to do so as well. And so I thank you for this resolution. I hope you all pass it, and I hope you feel like amending it to ask Councilmember Che to convince her fellow members. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Commissioner Finley. The last question I see in my screen is from Matthew Birnbaum. So Mr. Birnbaum, you have the floor. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Christiel. Thank you for the commissioners and my fellow neighbors for giving me a chance to speak on this issue. My name is Matt Birnbaum. I live at 3900 Connecticut Avenue, part of Tilden Gardens. 6 years ago, I got hit by a car. I live with lifelong pain because of it. I hope that nobody else has to do it. My stepkid and significant other do not bicycle that much on Connecticut Avenue for the fear of them having the fate that I did. I hope going forward that we'll be able to have the bike lanes so that they, myself and many others, can more safely bicycle on Connecticut Avenue for work, for commuting, for pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Next, we have, I think it's Dave May on my list. McGuire, I'm sorry. Mr. McGuire?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you all. I'm late to the meeting because I'm trying to put my kids to bed. My kids, who are laughing right now at me, are frequently on the back of my bicycle as I ride them to activities down in Woodley Park or in Cleveland Park, or just to get groceries from the Giant. And I want to add my please and thank you to the Concept C with a bicycle lane. And I also think I haven't been on the call for the longest time, but I do think that there's an argument about, I mean, it's uncomfortable to dissuade people from driving, but it is something that we tend to think we need to do in order to reduce the amount of pollution and carbon that we put into the atmosphere. So this is an opportunity to walk the walk. And I look forward to hearing what the result is of tonight's vote. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. McGuire. I think next we have Garrett Hannigan. Welcome, Mr. Hannigan.
Good evening. First off, thank you all so much for I think a really well-informed and very calm and I think measured discussion. So thank you for that. And I think there's an intense amount of work that went into this resolution from the commissioners and the committee. So thanks for that. My name's Garrett Hennigan. I grew up in Ward 3. My family lives in Ward 3. My brother had lived in Cleveland Park. Many friends in your ANC, and my folks are still up in Chevy Chase. So I'm on Connecticut Avenue almost every day and have been for more than the past 30 years. And every time I was there, I looked at the street and thought, why is this place like this? So I thank you all for recognizing that this is the chance that our community has to change the design of this street to make it more than just a sewer of speeding cars. 40% of whom, 40% of which are starting their trip and ending their trip not in our community. As many others have said, I don't want to belabor the point, but this is the compromise position, Concept C, of all the options. Myself, I'm primarily a bicyclist, but also a pedestrian, and also I ride buses on Connecticut. And this is one that is a compromise for all of those positions. Nobody is getting exactly what they want, but the big winners are vulnerable people. This is the best option for pedestrian safety by putting in like dedicated left turn lanes and pedestrian refuge islands and reducing speed and repurposing extra car lanes which has a traffic calming effect, and putting in spaces, so that people on bikes and scooters and even in many places wheelchairs can feel more comfortable and more accessible. So I want to thank you all for, again, a measured discussion. And let's all work together to make sure that this is not implemented in 2025, but much sooner. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Hennigan. I think I see there's two hands raised. I see Commissioner Wall has his hand raised. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Harrison, you're up.
Great, thank you. I'll be really quick. Paul Harrison, I'm on the 3000 block of Albemarle and Forest Hills. Strongly support the bike lane. Live in a multi-generational household with seniors in their 70s and 80s and a 7-year-old boy who rides his bike to school. But I also really want to state my strong support and appreciation for the request to DDOT to get really serious about doing traffic calming analysis on both sides of Connecticut Avenue. It's long past time for these communities. And the Federal Highway Administration is very clear that traffic calming is an appropriate response to concerns about safety and cut through traffic in communities adjacent to what are called road diets, which is basically what we're doing here. We're making Connecticut the right size street for this community. But we all know that there's more to be done, and it's really quite easy. And also just want to highlight real quickly that the question about parking, I think it's a great conversation, and we have a lot of opportunity to push DDOT to be more focused on putting parking for folks who are going for a quick trip to the store or for seniors or handicapped. We don't have to have constant big blocks of 2-hour, 3-hour parking that are they're taken up by commuters or actually shopkeepers who would be more likely to be able to park in the garages. So I think there's a lot that could be done there to make sure that the street is accessible to whoever needs it for however they need it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harrison. I think Commissioner Wall has his hand raised. I guess this is, I don't know, this is a last call. If anybody...
I have one quick question.
Okay.
Yeah, just one quick question, I guess. One, to reinforce what Mr. Harrison just mentioned with regard to working with DDOT to provide accessible parking. Because I've been monitoring the conversation in the chat, and it's great to have very spirited debate, with the various viewpoints of people that are on this meeting this evening. But I think that we've got to recognize the fact that people do have different needs, and we also have to recognize that the DDOT design process is still fairly early on. Like, they have not actually laid out exactly which parking spaces will be where, and there's a lot of time left for us to make sure that things like red top meters, are put in place in the Connecticut Avenue corridor around Van Ness and other places, so that we can, to Mr. Harrison's point, ensure that there are spaces that are particularly set aside for those who are differently abled, who do need to, be closer to where they're visiting. So I just want to make sure that we remain civil in our conversation and realize that the concerns people are expressing are very real. I think that we still do have time to work with DDOT to make sure that we try as much as possible to accommodate these needs while also providing enhanced facilities and safer facilities for everyone.
Thanks, Commissioner Wall. So I think I see one, I don't know how they did this, but they commandeered the name iPhone. How did that happen? So Mr. or Ms. iPhone, the floor is yours.
Hi, thank you. Hi, I wasn't able to enter my name when I joined, but appreciate the opportunity to speak. My name is Jacob Deering. I live on 3001 VZ Terrace behind the Giant. I just wanted to take a minute to voice my support for Concept C and really appreciate this opportunity for our community. I think it's going to have tremendous improvement to calming traffic, making it safer for my 4-year-old who's constantly out on the sidewalks on his bike, and give us a little buffer from the highway that is Connecticut Avenue. So again, appreciate your support for Concept C and protected bike lanes in the community. Thank you so much. Bye.
Thanks for joining us tonight. Anybody else? I don't see a hand raised. Going.
Raise a hand.
Ms. Bates, is that you?
Yeah, right.
All right, you have the floor.
Thank you. I just want to say what an excellent job all of you have done on this. And certainly for the bicyclists. Many a time I've sat at the bus stop, seen the bicyclists go by, and then all these cars with only one driver in them. So I've been sympathetic with, you take your life in your hands to bicycle on Connecticut Avenue or elsewhere. I'm glad to see you have in there the option for other options to discuss with DDOT as it comes up, because I almost fell over 2 scooters on the sidewalk again today as I was walking from the metro station. So their parking needs to be addressed too.
Okay.
But thank you. I think it's a great resolution.
Thanks, Ms. Bates, for your comments. Anybody else? Last call, at least for tonight. I think, as we said earlier, this is, we've had this conversation. We're having this conversation tonight. We're gonna have a little bit more discussion and we're gonna vote on a resolution, but that's not the end of the process. I mean, as a planner, one of the things, plans are easy. Although they may, I mean, they're easy to pass, but what's more important is the implementations. And so this notion of us getting a resolution passed and getting DDOT to work on it is really important. And so working with them in the meantime to make sure that they can do measures right now that we've talked about, and making sure that that happens. And then and if Concept C is adopted, when they go through the design phase, making sure they're getting the parking right, they're getting the traffic diversions right, they're getting things that are important to this community right. It's really up to us to help them, do the right thing, and pushing in a number of different levels. So if there's no further questions, it's back with us as commissioners. So let's start out with a motion and a second, and then we'll see if there's more discussion we have. So
Motion to approve the resolution.
thank you, Commissioner Appa. We have a second on that.
Second.
Second, Commissioner Nemeth. Back to us. Any questions, concerns, adds from the commissioners before we call the question? Or statements?
I'll just make a closing statement on it, which is, one of the things I appreciate, especially in hearing the comments from the community at large about this, is that Connecticut Avenue is a major corridor for the city. And one thing we have to recognize, that a lot of times when people think in terms of corridor, they think about vehicular traffic, but really an artery like Connecticut Avenue is not just for motor vehicles. I mean, it is for pedestrians, it is for bicyclists, it is for all sorts of modes of transportation. We need to recognize that, and we need to be able to accommodate everyone and not just motor vehicles. And so I'm really pleased with this discussion. It reinforces certainly my feelings about everything going into this, about how I want to get rid of the reversible lanes and have the protected bike lanes. And I'm set.
Thank you,
Commissioner Castile.
Oh, go ahead.
One additional, I have a proposed addition. Actually, this was raised in the chat. I think it makes a lot of sense, and that is adding to our resolution a recommendation to actually fund the effort. We actually don't speak to that currently in our resolution, so would propose an amendment to the resolution seeking to advance or encourage Councilmember Che and the council to actually fund implementation.
So that's a good point, Commissioner Wallen. I think I thought about that. So that's one approach, would be to amend this or add to this current resolution. The other thing that's going on, and this is at least amongst the commissioners we should know, is that we're anticipating having a resolution on the FY22 budget for next month as a draft, and then we'd vote on it in June. And I think the idea would be to have coming from Streets and Sidewalks Committee, some recommendation around, for DDOT and certainly the work both with Concept C or any kind of other mitigation or other things we want to do. That would be, that was the intent. Like with Parks and Wetlands, they may put something in. We've got the master plan with UDC. We've got the housing programs. And so I think the mayor's releasing the budget on the 27th of May. And so I guess one thought would be to hold off on the funding request and then put our ideas into a draft resolution that would be all the FY22 requests beginning in May, and then, you know, looking at it in June. So that would be an alternative rather than doing that right now. But I'm open if my fellow commissioners want to entertain an addition to the resolution.
If we were to put in a funding request right now, it would not be directed to Mary Che and to the council. It really would be directed to DDOT and the mayor's office, because at this point, they're the ones who are doing the budget and putting it together. And so that's where they need to be allocating the funds first. And so we would really, I would support saying, having a line in there for DDOT and the mayor to fund this now, and then after the mayor presents her budget to council, when we later on want to do our resolution on budget requests and things that council, we want to highlight for the council, reprogramming things that we think the council should take action on once the budget is published by the mayor, the draft budget is published by the mayor, then we can call that out. But at this point, it's not for the council to budget. It really is still with the mayor's office and DDOT. So I would, if we put in any funding requests, it should go that route.
Okay, I see Commissioner Buechner, you got your hands up. You have the floor.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I tend to agree with including the ask sooner rather than later, because it gives us the opportunity to make the ask twice in case it isn't approved the first time. And I think that always getting it early is always a good idea. So I would definitely support adding that amendment to our resolution.
All right, other commissioners, Commissioner Mehta, Commissioner Appa, Commissioner David. Who am I missing? Oh, me. Thoughts?
I'm in support. This is Commissioner Appa. I'm in support of adding, making sure that we have the funding asked twice. I think it's never a bad idea to make sure that the funding gets in there. So I'm happy to make amends to the resolution.
Commissioner David, Commissioner Mehta, thoughts, concerns?
Yeah, well, I'm not clear on when we're making a funding ask. Clarify for me exactly what we are asking to be funded. Are we talking about the traffic calming measures that are in one of the resolved clauses that we're asking for in the near term? Are you talking about the longer term project of Build Concept C simultaneous with traffic calming measures in our adjacent neighborhoods? Or are we talking about everything? If we're going to do this, I want to be super clear that we're asking to fund everything, not just Build Concept C, but also the traffic calming measures in the near term and in the long term that accompany Build Concept C.
I completely agree. I think it's both. So it's to fund design construction and to fund the immediate interventions, as you've stated, Commissioner Mehta, that we need now to address issues that we have today.
I would support the request for funding so long as it's a request that encompasses all the various stages around the traffic calming measures as well as Build Concept C.
So we have a special, actually, we have a guest who's from Ms. Che's office who wants to comment. So I will give the floor to Mr. If you could pronounce your last name so I don't botch it, Mr.
Sure. This is Mike Porcello. I'm Mary Che's legislative director.
Welcome.
A very helpful conversation. As you guys noted, the council member is in support of this work. I was just going to say, I would, and I'm not pressuring you to do it. I'm just saying, certainly this is a place to put in a funding request. I don't know if it'll come across in the mayor's proposal, just because, you know, they are still formulating, and I don't know if they've made a decision on which to go forward yet. But sometimes they may put, in the sense that if they don't know which selection they're going to make, they may delay, but they may also put money forward toward it. So I would recommend including that language. I mean, I'd also say, obviously, the council member is well of the need here and looking to make sure that this gets done, given the importance. So just wanted to flag that yes, I would raise it for both, because the mayor is still formulating her budget until May 27th when it comes across. So it's a helpful flag as well to other members of the council that it's an immediate priority.
I appreciate the hint. I think the hint's taken. So I'm just wondering if my hands are here, so I haven't been writing anything, but anybody have take a shot at a therefore be it resolved that we're requesting funding for concept C as well as mitigating, I think there's some language. I
see Commissioner Maida's writing furiously, so I'm assuming she's drafting something.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
My fellow commissioners don't always see that as a good thing, but I'm going to give it a shot.
Commissioner Mehta has a good healthy sense of humor.
Okay, what, Mr. Porcello, maybe you could also provide some very precise language on exactly which bodies, in addition to Councilmember Che's office, we should be directing the funding request to.
Sure. I don't want to give exact language. I'm going to say the right agencies. You would direct it to DDOT. You could, I would direct it to the mayor as well. She has overarching control, but it would be DDOT. This sits within the DDOT budget. So you'd want them to recognize the request.
Okay, so if we had something that read, therefore, be it further resolved that ANC3F urges DDOT, Councilmember Che, and the mayor's office to, and then I would put in, I think I would put in 3 levels of Roman numeral small I, double I, and triple I. The first small I would be in the near term to fund traffic calming measures in adjacent on adjacent streets immediate, like as soon as possible, and then list some of what those traffic calming measures are after. I actually, sorry, I'm thinking out loud. I'm on the spot a little bit. I think what we ought to do is follow up with a list that we should say that we will follow up with a list of traffic calming measures that we are suggesting in our adjacent neighborhoods. Second, funding for build concept C, and third, concept simultaneous with build concept C, traffic calming measures in adjacent neighborhoods intended to address the impacts and the safety concerns that would arise from diversion traffic as a result of build concept C.
That sounded great, Commissioner Mehta. We've got this recorded too, so.
We do, and Stan also has Commissioner Wall also has some language in the chat that we could also look at.
I very liberally copied and pasted from ANC3C's resolution as it relates to funding, so that might be a good starting point from which we can add the additional points with regard to the near-term adjacent neighborhood safety intervention.
So you're directing us to the chat?
Oh, I can read it. Their statement was, be it further resolved that ANC3F, in our case, urges DDOT to be sure that there are sufficient funds for final design and construction allocated for Concept C in their budget for FY 2022. And again, that only speaks to the actual Connecticut Avenue improvements, doesn't speak to adjacent communities. So we would want to make sure we add to that our desire for funding of the neighborhood traffic calming.
Right, and I think Mr. Daling put in some additional language that addresses that. Is that correct? Sort of the quarter-wide improvement.
Right. If you look at the resolution, it talks about what DDOT calls corridor safety improvements. And so as one of your little Roman numerals, you might want to just, use that language too. It's all kind of a piece maybe with the study, but they say they would implement corridor safety improvements regardless of the option chosen. So in that spirit, just a friendly idea.
Appreciated. So do we want to, are we ready to add that to the main resolution?
Well, if, I mean, if the person who proposed the resolution accepts it as a friendly amendment, then we don't even have to.
Okay. And that would be Commissioner Wall, as I understand it, correct? So if Commissioner Wall, if you're okay with that friendly amendment?
I am indeed okay with the amendment as crafted by Commissioner Maida. So thank you. Yeah.
All right, so I don't know if you want to read that again, or I think we're ready for a vote. I think we're ready for a vote.
I think we're ready for a vote, and I think we can say that there's, we can tweak the language, make the vote and say that, it's subject to tweaking the language as we finalize.
All right. I appreciate all the hard work that's gone in before this with the committee, now with the commission, and now with the committee and committee and commission, and from participation from the audience. So with that, we have a motion on the floor. We've got a second. All those in favor say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes as amended 7-0. Thank you very much for all the good work. And now, as they say, no good deed goes unpunished. So now we have more work to do. So we look forward to working with I look forward to working with my fellow commissioners, with the Streets and Sidewalks Committee, with those of you that have tuned in. We're gonna, this is gonna be a heavy lift, but I think it's gonna, hopefully, if we're successful, it's gonna be for a better Connecticut Avenue for more people. So thanks a lot for tuning in tonight on this one. Stick around, we've got committee reports. And if there's any other energy from the community, we've got community feedback. So committee reports, Mr. Dealing, you want to streets and sidewalk, anything that besides Connecticut Avenue about?
Well, believe it or not, yes, there are things going on, but of course, Connecticut Avenue was a big issue. We've also, from the beginning of founding this committee 4 or 5 years ago, been looking at trying to fill what we call sidewalk gaps, or missing sidewalks in the ANC. We had a discussion about a potential opportunity to do that. Apparently some folks from DDOT are collecting information about priority areas for missing sidewalks. So we're going to try to make some headway on that. We also discussed the draft UDC campus plan, not all of it, but more of the issues that affect the streets, the sidewalks, the intersections, et cetera. And we hope to provide some input to the commissioners as you all, I think if the plan is to work on some sort of comments or resolution on that. And then finally, we talked about budget issues, which of course you mentioned earlier. So we'll work on making some recommendations on budget issues related to the streets and sidewalks. That's pretty much our report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dealing. I thought I saw Ms. Levine, who was here for the Rock Creek Conservancy, but she's probably left. So I guess that's, Mr. Tanderick, you're here for schools and universities. Welcome.
Hello. So a couple of things. So first thing, we finally have like a tab on the ANC3F website, which is really cool. Our two main priorities right now is basically contacting the schools. So in the past month, we've contacted 3 schools within 3F and just to get a sense of just what issues they're working on right now, as well as talking about sort of like the next school year. And then, so we're going to keep on contacting schools within 3F itself, as well as try to continue to contact schools in Ward 3. So it's going to be some type of like long-term project for our committee. And then our other priority right now is the budgets. So I met up with Commissioner Buechner and Commissioner Appa regarding ideas that they want recommendations for the budget in returns to schools. And so we're hoping that next month, just have a resolution to give to y'all about the ideas that we have to help better schools within the area. And that is it.
if I may just interrupt 1 second. One thing we do want to call, especially for all of our committees, but specific also for street and sidewalk, as well as housing and neighborhood. We are looking for additional folks to join the committee. Currently, our schools and universities committees, we don't have any parents on the committee, and we would really love parent participation or even grandparent participation, so that we can make sure that any recommendations that we are making really continue to be reflective of parents and teachers in our community. I know James is a school teacher, and so we've got a lot of great perspective from him, but we really would love to have additional participation from the community. So please let us know if you are interested in joining any of these committees.
Thanks, Commissioner Appa. I know I saw a comment on the chat, something about democracy. So I'm gonna interpret it my own way. I think that, as my experience with ANC3F is relatively short, but I've really come to appreciate the committee structure that we have here, and this idea of having them. And again, I think tonight's conversation around the Connecticut Avenue Concept C is really a good example of how a committee can work and really help us develop resolutions and develop ideas. And then it comes to us, and we tweak it and push it and pull it and get pushed and pulled. So I really like the committee structure in terms of helping us deal with important issues. So I appreciate Commissioner Appa for your call for those of you out there, or if you know somebody, to really join our committees, because they really do. They're active, they're working, and we do, as commissioners, we listen to them and listen to their feedback and their input. So it's really important. And this is really, again, one way where I think we can make our democracy work better. So thanks. I think that's it for committee reports. If there's any energy left from anybody else in the community that wants to raise a question or concern, this is your time. So raise your hand.
Van
Yeah.
Ness Main Street. I just want to remind everyone that May is Small Business Month. Van Ness Main Street is on the planning committee for the citywide celebration. And we will be holding our annual meeting on May 7th. And on May 16th, we will be doing a corridor-wide event from 1 to 4 to invite everyone out to the corridor. And we'll be advertising promotions at the businesses. We'll be having some street art and some activities for kids. We're going to have a pop-up Barks and Brew at one of the restaurants. Just really to bring people out in the spring and stroll the avenue and experience the businesses and rediscover the heart of Van Ness. So that's it. Thank you for everything tonight. Great meeting.
Ms. Garcia, I think Mr. Wagoner, you're next. You got your hand raised.
Hey, good evening, Commissioner Castile. Yeah, I'm actually just going to follow up on some things that I've spoken to the committee about before and to you about. First, just on some follow-up items. Where are we from last month's item about the construction, parking, and the trash between Sidwell and Hearst? I'm not sure anything's changed there. And then another follow-up item on the lack of COVID vaccination points in Ward 3. And to that end, I would like to pass out a thank you to whoever managed to get a testing location established. One of the self-testing locations at the Tenley Town Library. So that should be useful. But yeah, if you could follow up on those two things. We've had a lot of talk tonight about, hey, the ANC is going to put the pressure on DDOT and the council. Who is that person? Because I'm just not sure we've seen any pressure put anywhere by the ANC when it comes to following up on things that are brought up at every single ANC meeting.
Okay, I think I'll, as I see Mr. Porcello from Mary Chay's office has his hand up, so I don't know if he's going to try and answer that question. So Mr. Porcello, you're on.
I guess a quick answer to that is to always, reach out. You can always reach out to me and to our office. We're happy to, I'm of course happy to take feedback from the ANC and from residents, and to at least get to resolution. I did want to raise two other quick items. One was because I know at the last meeting we discussed the budget, and I did want to flag again that the budget process has been delayed until May 27th. The council is currently scheduling all of those hearings. I know you all have probably planned to attend 2 different hearings already before this. There's going to be a third set of scheduling, and the hope is that that's going to come out in the next, well, it'll come out in the next week or 2, and then the council has to officially adopt the new schedule at our May 4th meeting. And those will then all be during the month of June, all of the hearings with votes over the summer. It's been delayed again so that the mayor has time to incorporate, fully incorporate all of the federal funds, because it was taking a while for Treasury to put out guidance on how different dollars could be used.
Mr. Porcello, this is Commissioner Maida. I'd like to go back to the specific items that Mr. Wagner raised, and to understand what your direction is specifically, beyond just contacting your office about how to get action. Because from what I understand, the massive construction project across from Sidwell Friends at the Fannie Mae site is kind of a disaster for the people living around there. There are folks who work at that site that are urinating in bottles and leaving them around in the neighborhood. They are parking in places that they're not supposed to park, the folks who work at that site. So my question to you specifically is, what pressure will Councilmember Che bring to bear on the developer of that site in order to prevent this from continuing? Because the bottom line is it's truly unacceptable, and I'm not comfortable with sending Mr. Wagner all over the place to seek to seek redress on this. I'd like to get very clear statement from your office on what should be done to stop this from happening.
Sure. So, and I didn't mean to be flippant. I'm sorry. I was, I guess when I said reach out to our office, because I would need specifics about what has been done. I mean, the overarching thing to do, one, other than reach out to our office so that we can directly assist and connect you, one, with someone, I would say from DCRA, if there is a violation occurring. I mean, to the first urinating in bottles, as you said, I mean, that would be relating to, permits provided by DCRA for work on that site, and they could do some sort of enforcement, and we could help follow up on that and make sure that they're going out to do so. I would also note that, parking enforcement is going to be starting back up as of June 1st. You can certainly reach out to our office. Right now, DPW through the mayor is not doing any parking enforcement. We are certainly happy to see what we can do on that front, but until the mayor decides to restart enforcement, we can't force somebody from DPW to go out there and ticket folks. But that should be starting, as I said, in about 5 weeks, so that enforcement will go out. And I'll say, this isn't the first, you aren't the first folks we've heard regarding just on the parking front. It's something that the council member has been pushing on DPW about. How are they going to roll these things back out? Understanding obviously during a public health emergency that it's harder for some folks to move their cars. Maybe some folks don't feel safe going on and doing so, and the other reasons that they've delayed parking enforcement. But there are certain situations where they needed to restart, and we were glad to hear that they're sort of getting back to normal now. Among the other items that are going to be restarting on June 1st, and some of them on July 1st as well, related to parking enforcement, street sweeping, things of that nature.
So are we suggesting that short of a $150 ticket to all of these construction workers, there's actually no mechanism that there's an interface with the city that can talk to the whoever the construction head is and just say, hey, we're the local neighborhood. We've got this issue. Maybe we can deal with it, short of all of these hardworking construction workers getting $150 a day tickets.
Mr. Wagner said it better than I could have. Mr. Porcello, that was going to be exactly my follow-up. And my question to you is, can we not get Councilmember Che along with the ANC3F to contact somebody both in writing, and I'm willing to follow up with a phone call, but I suspect that a call from your office would be more impactful, to just have a direct conversation. Going through DCRA and the layers of bureaucracy is not going to result in the kind of action that is needed in the very near term. So I'd really like to hear from you, Mr. Porcello, on what a really practical near-term solution is to address this.
I mean, I guess to your question, I mean, the way that we would be able to figure out who is responsible for that site would be going through DCRA. Our office doesn't have access to those files or materials in the sense that, and I guess that is what I'm talking about, is reaching out to our office so that we can contact DCRA to figure out, you know, who is the project manager, the case manager for that site for the construction company, and speak to them about this issue.
Well, I think we know that isn't roadside development the developer in charge of that site?
But I think, hey, Ms. Commissioner Mehta, it's actually a couple of developers. There's Roadside, there's a new development, Donahoe, just to the north of them, both on the west side of Wisconsin. And the other thing, lest we forget, is Hearst, you know, the Hearst construction's going on. So you've got 3 different construction companies that are, you know, that I think is Mr. Wagner is right, that we've got to somehow get to those 3 companies and sorting out, you know, what's it's just, you know, it is, you know, it's that complicated. And then, oh, by the way, when, you know, if Sidwell starts construction, you're going to have 4 companies that are going to have workers parking in the community. So I think that's something we've got to sort out. And I have had initial conversations with Commissioner Siddiqui around the Hearst pool issue. So that's, you know, we've just got to, you know, we've got to figure this out and see if we can get some, you know, better, I don't know if it's behavior or participation, but I think, you know, the idea of you know, finding workers, as Mr. Wagner says, $150 is not, you know, how do we prevent that?
If I may, you know, and David, I sent you a text separately a short while ago about this. Where's our MOCR? I mean, typically we have someone from the mayor's office who should be at our meetings, and I haven't seen our MOCR at this meeting, and I haven't seen our MOCR at all in 2021, actually, at our meeting. So that's something we need to find out, what's going on with the MOCR, with our representative from the mayor's office, because really dealing with DCRA, that's something that we go through our MOCR for primarily.
Sure, and I just want to say again, Commissioner Mehta, I'm not saying that Mr. Wagner, you all should reach out to me and I'm going to send you to sort of the depths of DCRA. That is not what we're suggesting. I'm just saying that in terms of you know, getting contact information, making that connection, that is how our office would start to do that. I'm just was laying out the order of operations from our front. Please do, I mean, reach out to me after this. I'm happy to I'm happy to connect with you on this and figure out a step forward. It is, you know, it is also a combination, and I, again, wasn't suggesting that we ticket folks or be hoping we ticket folks. I'm just saying one of the issues we're seeing is because parking isn't being enforced, you know, folks who would have otherwise taken other routes to get to work or figured out another way, or maybe their employer would have figured out, you know, a legal way for them to park because nobody wanted to get a ticket, have not been doing so. And, you know, that's something we've raised to DPW during the public health emergency. And I guess that's why I'm saying, not that we're waiting for June 1st and hoping that folks will get tickets, but we are hoping that, you know, employers will work with their employees so that they're not in violation of parking laws, and so that they can get to work in a way that, you know, doesn't result in a ticket, but also is efficient for them. And that's all I'm saying is on June 1st is that because enforcement will start, I anticipate that behavior will, you know, will wane at the very least.
I think it's, I think it's worth tracking down these 3 construction companies, and some of them are managed by whoever they're managed by, and figuring that out and going directly to them. That would be my take. And again, I've had an initial conversation with the 3C05 commission on figuring this out.
Sure.
Anything else on this? All right,
David, can I, and I had one other item I wanted to share, if that's all right.
Sure, I want to make sure. So I saw a thumbs up from Mr. Wagner. Right. Mr. Patello, you're back to you.
Sure. So I also, James had reminded me, I wanted to just flag for folks. Many in the community may be aware that right now DCPS is convening a working group on 2 new proposed schools in the ward. Although they'd be located in the very southern part of the ward, one in the Foxhall neighborhood, the other on MacArthur Boulevard. There is a working group that includes representatives from, you know, schools within the area right now, you know, for example, representatives from Eaton, including, Eaton principal. I wanted to flag that, later this month, DCPS is going to be putting out a survey to all communities, and it's not just the school communities. They're not just looking to parents and students, but, everyone in the community who would be impacted by these new schools to fill out, to say how they'd like to see these schools used, concerns that they have, considerations they'd like made. And I just want to flag this in the sense that, there are a lot of different considerations here. The probably more relevant here would be the MacArthur Boulevard School, which could be used as a middle or high school to alleviate overcrowding in those instances, either at Wilson or at Deal and Hardy. I'm not saying that it would necessarily change any of the, the boundary lines that would affect any in this community, depending on those uses. But I really hope that folks will fill out that survey and engage. And I'm going to say the council member is going to be sharing that in her newsletter. And I know we're going to be pushing it out on the listservs as well to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to fill that out.
Any questions or feedback? Sorry, I was muted. Thanks for that, Mr. Porcello. All right, I see one more hand. I've got Juanita Gray is with us from UDC. Juanita, Ms. Gray, welcome. You've got the floor.
Hi, Commissioner. I actually just put it in a chat because I'm in the garage of my building. So I don't know if I'll lose you or not. I just wanted to share that the farmers market will be opening in May. I forget if it's the first or second week of May, but it will be opening in front of the student center. Our summer plans are still going to be remote learning, but for fall, we're still working on our opening plans. So once we have more information on that, I will be sharing it. The tennis court is coming along very nicely. It is slated to be done by the beginning of the official date of summer / the middle of summer. But right now we're on point with completion of that project. And yes, that is all I have for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gray, for joining us. Any other questions or concerns from the community? Hearing none, thank you for joining us tonight. Thanks to my fellow commissioners and community for all particularly on the Connecticut Avenue study. We've got a lot of work to do. And then as we've heard tonight, we've got some other work on some other issues. So next month, budget, probably a draft budget resolution and probably a draft resolution for the UDC campus master plan. So stay tuned and thanks for joining us, and I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn tonight's meeting.
A second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, thanks. Have a good night. Stay safe.
Bye, everybody.
Have a good night.
Everyone.
Thanks, everybody.